Hey.
What's up, everybody? Want to say hello to you all. My name is Terrence Jones, and this is Alonzo Brown Jr. We are here today to discuss a video that came out a few days ago from a YouTuber. The channel is the Taboo Room, and the video was highlighting the violence in Montgomery, Alabama, specifically interviewing several young men from different communities. And as we saw feedback online, social media, different conversations with different people, we just decided to have a conversation that Alonzo and I have been having for a long time. And so we just want to invite you into the conversation as we think through that video, and more importantly, as we think through what it looks like to engage people in the urban context, in an inner city context. And so, Alonzo, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
It's
Good
great to have you here. Hey, I know we've even discussed just having a podcast in the first place, talking about a whole host of topics. Our relationship is unique. We've been pastoring the church together for 13 years, and you're still one of the most humble people I've ever met. And so it's a blessing to do this with you specifically, and especially on this topic. So while this is not an official rollout of a podcast for me and you, anything, really just a response, it is an answer to prayer that we get to have these type of dialogues. So the first thing I wanted to just talk with you about is what led you to inner city ministry in the first place?
Well, a couple of things that led me to inner city ministry. One, before I moved into West Montgomery, I was a part of a college ministry. And so as a college minister, we used to try to disciple young men, help them to grow, what it means to walk with the Lord, those type of things. And it seemed that the young men that I was investing in and the ones I were having the connection with and the relationships with were people from communities similar to West Montgomery, like guys from the hood, whether it was from places in New Orleans or D.C., Miami, Detroit, these spaces or these places, that these were the guys that I was connecting with. And the weird thing about it was I was connecting with these guys, although I myself wasn't from these particular areas where I'm from. So that was one thing that led me in that direction. And two, I used to be fascinated by certain movies, man. Like some of y'all might be familiar with Training Day or Boys in the Hood, things of that nature. But I remember, I'm not sure which movie it was, but I remember seeing a very eerie scene, a scene where two individuals were walking up the steps. And I just remember seeing the guys in the scene who were looking at these guys coming up, walking up the steps. And they just had these mean mugs. And you can tell it was just an environment of anger and what are you doing here? The outward exterior was very tough. And I remember watching that, and the thought in my brain was, man, I wonder what Jesus would look like in a neighborhood like this. I said that in my heart at the time. I don't know what year that was. That was another little moment where I'm starting to see some dots connect, and you can finally, I can see now looking back where God was already preparing me to be able to live here in West Montgomery. So that's some of the things I remember.
Yeah, no, that's good. For me, it actually started when I was 14 or 15, I want to say. Well, I can back up even further than that. Just as a child, before knowing Christ or anything, I just felt like God made me real sensitive in the area of giving. So much so that I can remember getting in trouble for giving away like my best toys to cousins, friends, and my parents be like, me not understanding the value of money, they'd be upset and like, man, why would you give away the best thing? Why you didn't give away the old one or something like that? So I remember that. But at 14, 15, a guy by the name of Coach Stewart hired me in an inner city context to work at a community center. And he hired me to be a summer camp counselor. And then after that first summer camp, he actually got me trained to be a lifeguard at the city pool. And so every summer from about 14 to 15 years old till I graduated, and even the summer after I graduated, I was working, in that environment, getting to know children from that environment, and also being at that pool. And so when I became a Christian, I went on about my life, and then fast forward to I was sitting in a rally or a conference in Atlanta from the college ministry that we both ended up working for, and John Perkins was there, and he was preaching about Christians moving into the inner city, and I had no framework for what he was talking about. I was totally shocked. I followed him around for the duration of the conference, just trying to make sure, like, wait, John Perkins, you really want Christians to move into areas where most people are trying to get out of and be the hands and feet of Christ there. And I was dumbfounded. And I connected to my days at the community pool and my days as a summer camp counselor. And I was so attached to that environment that even as a college student, my internships were downtown Birmingham, right next to the housing projects, and working their YMCA conference where my classmates were trying to get, internships for their fields. And I was a computer science major. I just wanted to be in that environment, working alongside people and the youth in those environments. So when John Perkins said that after I had graduated college, it really struck me. And we were in Atlanta. And then a year or so later, I leave Atlanta, moved to California for seminary. And Dr. Paul Felix, at the time, he was, or he still is, the president of an inner city school called Los Angeles Bible Training School, which was located in Watts. And he encouraged me my first semester. I don't know anybody. He's like, hey, man, come to my banquet. I'm having a banquet, annual banquet for the Bible school. I want you to come and, just enjoy and see what we're about. And so I said, cool, let me go. And while I was there, the keynote speaker was John Perkins again. Man,
that's crazy.
So I'm like, man, you gonna call me in Atlanta? Now you done follow me to California. And the dude preached the same thing from a different passage of scripture. And I'm like, this is wild. So I said it in my heart then. I'm like, Lord, I don't know where, but when I graduate, I'm going to move to a context where people that are able to leave and just try to see if I can be the hands and feet there. And I want to be a pastor in a place like that. Wow. So, our journeys to get to where we are and have been there 13 years did not start, it's not a new thing. God has been shaping us in this way long before we ever landed there. And, I can really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
What's your reaction, to the video? I know it dropped a few days ago and it was very fascinating. The video caught about 400,000 views like in a couple of days. Yeah. And now I think it's unavailable, some type of, if you click on the video now, it says some type of copyright infringements with our local news station. But what was your thoughts? We knew some of the guys in the video. Yeah. What were your thoughts about what you saw?
Well, it was a tough documentary to watch. Okay. And so I'm like, oh man, this is tough because keep in mind this is being documented here in Montgomery, right. The same city we live in. Mm-hmm. So it was hard to watch. But then as I'm watching and as I'm listening to the guys talk and even the questions that the gentleman was asking them, I was becoming more intrigued. Mm-hmm. Like, man, this is it. It definitely brought some light into how our young men think, how they process a lot of traumatic things that they've experienced and seen, which my feelings began to change to a sense of sympathy, some empathy. I remember one young man some began to talk about death, things that they've seen that were just things that no young person should ever see, like people dying right in front of them. Those are some traumatic things, and so that's where the sympathy comes from. And so to digest the whole documentary there, for me, it was helpful, and helpful in the sense that, okay, I'm tracking along with the challenges and the hardships that our young men are facing, which in a lot of ways I have not faced in some of the things that they faced. But then began to feel a sense of hope. Like, man, those are some terrible situations, but I do feel extremely hopeful because God is strong and He's big enough to be able to meet even difficult challenges and situations that they were explaining. I saw young men who, for some of them, I mean, it was a few of them where I felt like they were on, man, this is who I am to the day I die. This is just what it is. But then some of them were like, you know what? I'm here, but I wish I could do different. I wish there were other things that, some of them were saying, man, if you can get a job or if you can go to school, please do that. Don't live out here. This is not what you want. So it's a mixture of that. And so, but yeah, those are some of the things I think about watching that documentary. So
yeah, for me, I actually had discovered the YouTuber a few months ago, and I think somebody sent me the one for Birmingham, and then after I watched that one, I ended up going back and watching another one from Mississippi. I can't remember exactly where, but I think the conversation that the young men were having in Birmingham and Mississippi, it was very insightful in terms of, like you said, trying to understand the mindset of some of the things that we're trying to impact, now. So very, very insightful in that regard. Also opened my eyes even more, which we know this, but the drill music and the impact of the music on the things that documentary was portraying, and so I'm even more grateful for alternatives to that type of music. Facts. I think of Christian artists and things of that nature, but open my eyes more to that. But to see it in Montgomery, obviously it hit me a different way. It is different because this is our city, right? You know what I'm saying? This is where we live.
And it's people that we know, too.
And it's guys in the video that we know, right? Yeah, exactly. And I took one of the guys to lunch the next day. We'll may talk about that a little later, but it was heartbreaking in that sense because it's like, man, these are the people, that that we are praying for, asking God to reach, giving our lives away, so to speak, to try to fill some of the gaps, that we've seen and observed. So, so it was heartbreaking in that sense. I also felt vibes of demonic. I ain't gonna lie. And the reason I'm thinking of that is, First Peter talks about being sober-minded because your adversary, the devil, is roaming around seeking whom he may devour. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I could just see the world system and the devil's influence through drugs and music and culture and the stronghold that it has on the mind. you know, where we can't see the image of God in each other anymore.
Sure.
And we're not humans that are precious, and life ain't precious. You know what I mean? It's just something to take. And to risk your life and to take a life is so far down the totem pole on what God intended when it comes to us all being made in his image. So it was heartbreaking in that sense. I'll tell you something else that I'm still trying to process is just people's reaction to it. So people's reaction to it over the city. Like just over the
comment
city.
sections or just the whole city?
Comment sections, Facebook lives, people's statuses. You had people doing anything from condemning the young men and saying they're on their way to jail to people furious about the guy who actually did the documentary because, maybe he was exploiting them, or people terrified, ready to pack up and leave Montgomery. And I was just like, man.
I got you.
This video really has everybody's attention.
Sure.
And so that's what made me want to come and have this dialogue. And so
I got you.
There are 1,000 things we could discuss, but I think what my hope is from this video is that people in Montgomery, can't speak for any other community or anything like that, but people in Montgomery might have a little bit of direction, and not just people in general, actually the people of God might have a little direction as it relates to how do we respond to such a thing. But before we do that, I think it's important that people understand just some of the things that we've endured over the course of the 13 years that fall into the framework, of what that video was portraying. Now, and let me say this first, man, I love West Montgomery. Like, I don't want to live anywhere else. I don't want to be anywhere else. I can't even count anymore the job opportunities that have come my way to go to other places and do easier things for more money. I can't even count them. And yet, nothing I have felt at this point in my life has been God saying, go and do different. And really the only time I even came close was going to Kenya, you know what I mean? And that's still on the table because I love Africa. But we're just committed to this, and we're committed to the people, and we don't see our community as what that video portrayed. It's one slice to a pizza or a puzzle. And even the young men in that video, there's more slices and layers to them. You know what I mean? Because we've had them in different spaces in our gym, and we get to see more of their personality and more of who they are as people. And so even that is not a complete picture. And the people in our community are strong. They are courageous. They are family oriented. They'll give each other their last.
Facts.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Nothing is off the table when it comes to how they support one another and give to one another. And they've been extremely gracious to us. I've had phenomenal neighbors. I've had neighbors, that I wouldn't trade for anybody's neighbors, that look out for me, look out for my house, look out for my kids. When you've been there as long as we have, you become a part of the neighborhood. That's right. And the people recognize you as a part, and they've always looked out.
That's right.
Always showed love, and so that's amazing. And so I want people to hear some of the challenges that line up with things the video was portraying, but only because I want us to show people that there's a pathway past fear. You know what I mean? That you don't have to be bogged down in fear, that God is still real. He protects his people. And so, but in order to do that, we just got to share some of the more difficult things that we've experienced. So we could probably go back and forth, but why don't you just give me one or two that you're like, man, this was something else, that I've had to endure.
Oh, Pastor T. Come on, man.
Man.
I concur with you that to be in West Montgomery has been a huge blessing to us and our family. We have no plans to be anywhere else. We've been here 15, 16 years before we planted Strong Tower Church. And so, and one thing that before we came to West Montgomery, like I believe the Lord gave us a philosophy years before coming to West Montgomery is that I really believe that one way to really impact people is by living with them and having people to be around you and see how you live up close. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, hold up, man, this dude is he loves God, but he cut his grass like all of us. You know what I'm saying? He sit on the porch and he's chilling too, or he's walking his kids up the steps, or he's going to get groceries, and man, he come in and allow us to come over and have food, and he come over to our house. Like it's that's one of the motivations and things that led myself and my wife Antoinette to be here in West Montgomery. But you know, even though we have the friendships and over the years, there definitely was some challenges too. Now, you know, we gonna go ahead and be real. You know, I just put it out there, man. I know it several times where you have a lot of gunshots. You know, whether it's right there in front of my house, whether it's down on the corner, or whether it's blocks away. To me, if it sounds like it's right next door. You know what I'm saying? So there have been moments where I have feared for my very life. There was a couple of times where my house was shot into.
Break that down for the people so they
Bruh,
understand what happened.
Listen, man. Me and my wife, we are asleep, and all you hear is bang, 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 and we roll over off the bed. We on the floor. I remember just calling the police, and I'm just terrified, my hands shaking, and you know, we find out the cops come by, and you can see the bullet holes through the front window. You can see bullet holes in my wall. The ceiling I still haven't covered that up yet, but it's always a reminder of what happened. But you know what? As bad as that sound, and thankfully we had some friends to be able to help us to maybe get out of there. Not maybe, but to help us to get out there for maybe a week to kind of get ourselves together.
Now, did that happen once or twice?
It happened twice. But you know what though? Like, even when that happened, like, first of all, people from our church came to pray with us, to come to the house. But I tell you what, even my neighbor next door was like, "Look, man, what happened to you? That shouldn't have happened. Man, let me pay that for you." So even my neighbors was like, "Man, look, tell me what the price is, and man, we'll take care of it. That shouldn't have happened at your house." And so
you had community members praying for you.
Community members praying for me, praying for us. And so you know, so that there, and I'll be honest, to this day, man, I sleep with the fan on, bruh, because there's still a fear that, man, something can pop off when it's just quiet. That's when it was happening. And so then that's where the sympathy comes from, because it's like, man, if that is terrifying to me in my own bed, just people shooting in my house, you know, how do you deal with that's going on in a regular basis in your space? You know what I'm saying? And so that's just...
And if I'm not mistaken, I know I'm not mistaken, you guys actually have like a metal plate that you put in the window.
Yeah, man.
When you go to bed at night to protect you,
yeah,
and your wife from getting hit by a bullet.
Yeah, man. Because our bed is right in line where the windows are, and so if bullets going in our room, it's going to hit us. And so every night we pull up these steel plates in the window so that if it happens to come, it's going to catch it. And so, yeah, that's just one.
Let me jump in on that.
I know you have some as well.
Yeah, so I remember first moving into the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I remember people saying things like, "Oh my God, why would you? Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind?" You know, because we don't have to live there. I mean, we're both
That's
college
true.
educated. Our wives are college educated.
That's true.
We can live anywhere in Montgomery we want.
That's true.
We choose to live there. And so I remember people saying that and trying to get us not to. And I remember being there for about a month and thinking, what's the big deal? Like, nothing happens here. It's so quiet. It's so peaceful.
Lord have mercy.
And then on that day, because, you know, I live, Gibbs Village was mentioned in the video. So for 10 years, I lived right across the street from Gibbs Village. Lived on Beecher Street. So everything happened in the projects. You know, my house is 60 yards from
Right.
It was probably 60 yards from an apartment in the housing projects.
Yep.
And so I remember being about a month in, and early in the day, dude, there was a drive-by on the street. And I remember being in the living room by myself.
On your street?
On my
Beecher
street.
Street, okay.
On Beecher
Gotcha.
Street. And I just remember diving on the floor like a movie, crawling to the window, looking out, and seeing a car speeding, you know, down the street with the back windshield busted out. So I'm thinking the bullets flying at my house. So that happened around 2:00 in the afternoon, right?
In the daytime.
In the daytime.
Wow.
That same night, getting ready to go to bed, it's like 10:00 at night. I remember laying down and probably only laying down for about 5-10 minutes and literally heard machine guns going off to about 200 rounds of gunfire. And only reason I say 200 rounds because the article that came out, I think the next day, said that the police picked up 200 rounds of ammunition off the ground, and that was the day that G Code got killed. For those who may be from the community that remember him, and him and another guy had been shot 17 times. Like, it was wild. And then I
Lord have
remember once I got up off the floor, you know, from hearing those machine guns, because you so close, it sound like they shooting
like
at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I look out the window, bro, and I'm seeing in the dark, no faces, but I'm seeing people fleeing the scene. You know, and they split my house because, you know, we lived right on the railroad tracks. So I'm seeing 5 or 6 dudes running down the railroad tracks. I'm seeing them run through the tunnel. And I'm like, what in the world? And I remember the aftermath of that, you know, PTSD is real. And and I remember, man, if a door shut, I was jumping.
Yeah.
I remember just, you know, being terrified, really, horrified.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so that would be one for me. I'll do another one, then maybe you got another one. But I remember we got robbed.
I remember that.
You remember that?
I remember that. Yeah. They cleaned
on
y'all out.
On the first sabbatical.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? They made it to the 7-year mark.
That's right.
Like, okay, I'm ready to let my hair down for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think we went out to California, you know, with my mother-in-law and, you know, hanging out at my wife's house. And
Yeah. I remember that.
And man, got a phone call, you know, on the last week from somebody from the neighborhood saying, man, your house done been robbed.
Yeah. I remember
Police everywhere. So we're driving back knowing that we are driving back to a home that we've been robbed, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I can remember a few things about that. One, I remember trying to figure out what to tell the kids, you know, and we probably should do a little bit of this on what in the world do you know, how you navigate with the kids and that kind of thing. But
absolutely.
I remember getting robbed. I remember people from the church. We had a police officer in our congregation at that time, and she was on the scene. She was saying what a mess the house was. Not only were we robbed, it was vandalized. So clothes was everywhere. you know, they snatched the TV off the wall, you know, and so they were in there for like a day because they knew we were gone for 6 weeks because they actually lived in the house next door to us. The people that ended up doing it. And you know, I'll speak to that in a minute too, but they weren't even from West Montgomery. Like they weren't even from there. I think that dude was from Florida or somewhere and had moved in the house next to me.
Yeah.
But I can remember coming back and telling the kids on the way home that 2 groups of people went in our house. And the reason why I said that, because the church came in and cleaned up the whole vandalism mess.
Yeah, sure did.
So we actually never saw
That's crazy.
exactly how bad it was.
Yeah.
You know, we were just told how bad it was by the police officer, but people went in and cleaned up the mess and everything. So I told my kids, 2 sets of people went in our house. 1 set to do us harm, and 1 set to do us good.
Yeah.
Stole my Tuskegee championship rings,
ring, yeah.
all 3 of them. Shout out to Tuskegee, by the way. Yeah, 3 of them. You know, I wasn't starting for all 3 of them, but I was on the teams. And so stole that. You know, stole the kids' bikes. Come on, man. You know, the kids' bikes were gone. And I remember people giving money to replace every bike.
Wow.
At that point, 7 years in, we still didn't have a security alarm. You know, we had no type of, which is one of the reasons why they were able to stay in the house for a day and vandalize and get tools and take TVs off the wall, is because we didn't even have a security alarm. You know what I mean? And but I remember people donating funds for that. And so I remember getting back, and the dope boys across the street from me telling me who did it. And the fact that they had tried to sell their championship rings to them.
My.
I remember that. I remember confronting the dude who did it.
That's crazy.
You know, because he didn't know I knew he did it. And I remember him asking for a ride to work, and he lived outside. He worked outside of Montgomery, about 20 minutes away. And I just remember riding that dude in my truck or car, whatever I had, and just preaching to him. For like 20 minutes. I'm like, he can't get out of here. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, dude, I know you did it.
Yeah.
I know you took my stuff.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know, warning him of the judgment to come. You know, that he need to repent. That Christ died for him too. I remember doing all of that. And so anyway, that's another experience that we had. You got any more?
Well, one that just came to mind, I know you can identify with, is that when you have someone that you know that you get close to and they pass away because of the violence, it just tears you apart.
Right.
You know, especially when we used to have times where we used to open up the gym and allow the young men to play basketball and being in an environment where you don't have to look over your shoulder. You know what I'm saying? You have a time you can hoop, you can get some exercise, have a good time. We might have some pizza every now and then. And you rubbing shoulders with these guys, and you getting people to come in to share about, you know, life in careers and giving your life to the Lord and these things. You look on their phones and they got pictures of their kids and okay, I see a young papa, you know, all of that, those things go on, and you're building, you're growing together, and then the guy you building with actually pass away. It just really hits different, and that's challenging too, because when you live in a community you want to serve and you want to love, you get close to people, and then when people die, like, it's very hard, very difficult. You know, especially these young men, and I remember, if I'm not mistaken, when you out of town one time.
Yeah, I was out of town when it happened.
And
what are you talking about?
I think maybe on vacation or something. And I don't know if I called you or somebody called you and like, hey, so and so, man, he's dead. You know, that has to have been terror.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
That was terrible.
Man. Yeah, I remember weeping like a toddler. You know, just frustrated, angry, confused.
Yeah.
And more than anything, it's just heartbreaking because these are young men we were building with.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
and we
right.
were seeing fruit of them trying to turn and change and go in a different direction.
That's right.
One of the young men had, even enrolled in college.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? After months of dialogue and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to talk about them too long because I know I'm going to start crying. But,
Yeah. It just makes me. So that's where the sympathy comes from. Is that when I pondered the documentary, man, they are actually talking about partners, like friends that they grew up together, and they have. Then their friend gets murdered, and then their cousin gets murdered, and it just hits you in ways that that's hard to process. Traumatic moments. I tell you, I was impacted. When I was at Alabama State, and one of my teammates died. I didn't even know him personally, but it rocked me to the core.
Yeah,
because I knew him. I'm sitting here watching him. He literally dies in front of me. And that really made me want to think about my life. And so as I think about these challenges and these young men, it's got to be that's just hard to work through. But
we've seen so much of it. Bullet holes in my house too. Bullet hole in my mother-in-law car. I still don't even think that bullet hole fixed. Drive-bys on my street that would terrify my neighbors, and my neighbor right next to me, the bullet went through the living room wall, into the bedroom wall, and like this far over their head where they slept.
Yeah.
I remember walking outside after that and finding one of the dope boys on the street over with a gunshot wound in his arm. And I remember standing out there talking to them, man, trying to warn them about where this road lead.
Yeah.
And of that particular group, it was 4 main guys. 2 of them dead. One of them got killed on Facebook Live.
Yeah, I remember that.
The other one was shot in the face with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And one of them went back to jail. And I saw the 4th one a few months ago. But many things. You remember when we got death threats?
That was another one that I thought about. I thought about bringing that up too. Yeah, man, that was the strangest, the weirdest thing. I think we were leaving a meeting with pastors.
Yeah.
And we were just talking, and the gentleman was walking across the street, and I don't know what triggered him to speak to us. I just remember, man, what are you looking at? And I was like, what's going on? Thought to wave to him, man, what you looking at? And man, I kill you. Whoop, whoop. I was like, bruh, this dude is really threatening us right now. Yeah. I thought he was going to turn around and start walking towards us.
Wow. Man, I don't even remember that. I have no recollection of that. I'm talking about the death threats on the phone.
Oh, that one.
You remember when we was getting the death threats on the phone?
I do remember that too. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Did you screenshot that? Did you keep that or?
I didn't. Did you keep it?
No, I was just saying if you did. But
for a little while, we were just getting random texts, death threats, people saying they wanted to kill us, that we need to get out the neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to say it lasted at least a few months. And not every day, but just, 4 or 5 different times getting this text. I remember, trying to get the authorities involved. They couldn't trace it, because it was burner phones. So just some wild stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely. So with all that being said, why you stay, man? Why
a
you
good
still
question.
there? Like you hey, we've had several reasons to pack it up
Well,
and get out of
look.
there. And look, nobody would have
Been mad.
rebuked us.
Well, I tell you
And
what.
been like, y'all simpletons.
Hey, well, I tell you what. I definitely was considering, bro. I think I can't remember. It was the first or second time when those guns was going off in my house.
Yeah.
But I was ready to bounce, man.
I feel you.
And I remember, when your wife is saying, "Look, I don't think it's time to leave." The Lord's not done. He working. That really challenged me to consider that. But if my family would have been on the opposite side to say, you know what, it's time to do different. This is not what we signed up for. I think it's time to leave. Who knows? Maybe we would have been somewhere else. But the thing that and I think this is where this conversation is going. But the thing that keeps me here in this space for however long the Lord will have us is that when I look at, first of all, when I look at Jesus, man, like, this Jesus, man, he leaves heaven. He leaves privilege. He leaves the heavenlies. He's God, as the scripture reveals about him from the Old and New Covenant, the New Testament, and so forth. And so to leave heaven, to become a human being,
I got the passage right
into
there
the world.
for
You got the passage.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, your brother, when you get older, you got to pull out them reading glasses, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but yeah, over here and
I didn't even know you was going to that passage. I was going to do that one, but
well,
go ahead.
You
know,
could,
you go,
but
no, you go ahead.
okay.
You brought it up.
All right. Well, it says here in Philippians chapter 2, where Paul is talking to the church of Philippi. He's comparing. He's talking about the humility of the Lord Jesus, and he says, chapter 2, verse 3. Let's see. He says, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. He says, let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. And then Paul says in verse 5, have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped. But he emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, and being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. And so this picture of Jesus becoming a human being, God becoming a man, and he lived among us. And so the Father, to send his Son into a sinful world, though Jesus was sinless. And I'm not saying I'm sinless.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We all fall short of the glory of God with our sin, but Jesus was sinless, and yet he grew up in a world that was full of a human being that was totally rebellious against God. And he would live among us. He ate. He when he got tired, he went to sleep, those type of things, just like humans do. And so to know the story about God wanting to reach people by sending his Son into the world to save us, me moving into a community that's not like mine, which I grew up different. I grew up in the suburbs in Maryland, Clinton, Maryland. And for God to come into the world, I'm not doing anything special. You know what I'm saying? I'm to move into a community, for someone to move to Africa, or someone to go to this place somewhere that's different. That's nothing new. God did that. And so that's one thing that keeps me there, is that I'm not doing anything different that God does. He did it himself. And then another thing that keeps me is to know that, you know what, I might not be from a community like West Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, another thing that connected dots in my mind to lead me to West Montgomery, and a community like West Montgomery, man, the guy who led me to the Lord was from the streets of Cleveland.
Come on, somebody.
Bruh, this dude dropped out of the 8th grade
Mm-hmm.
because he wanted to grow up to be a gangster.
Mm-hmm.
This his story.
Mm-hmm.
Crime, shooting, selling drugs, being incarcerated, giving people bad drugs, people looting, like you name it. This was his life, and the Lord got a hold of him and saved his heart. That's another thing that, man, if God can change a gangster, man, ain't nobody can't be changed. And then he winds up on the campus where I'm playing football. He was older than us. He came teaching us. Look at the irony. You know, he dropped out at 8th grade, but he's there on the college campus telling us about what really matters in life. He's teaching us football players about the love of God. And homeless too. He was homeless, bro. A homeless street preacher. Man, telling us the good news about Jesus' love. And through this man, I said, you know what, I want to start living for the Lord. And so that was another connector. You know, the guy who mentored me knows exactly. And he talked to me like I'm from, I mean, sometimes it's difficult. You know, he's coming to me hard because he said, man, look, you got to come hard here, man, because you can't be coming. But anyway, let me back up. So, but another thing that keeps me here, T, is in Acts 17, where Paul is, you know, he's a Jew, but he's in a Jewish community. I mean, not a Gentile community. And he's noticing, he said, man, I'm noticing these idols that's around here. And I see this sign where you're saying, you know, this is the, to the unknown God. He said, let me tell you about this unknown God. And the thing that really, man, that inspires me to be a blessing to my neighbors is when he talks about, listen, Acts 17:26, Paul says, from one man, talking about Adam, he has made every nationality to live over the whole earth and has determined their appointed times, meaning God is the one who appoints how long we live, right? And he's determined the boundaries where they live. So God, what he's saying is that where we're from, whether it's West Montgomery, whether it's from Clinton, Maryland, whether it's from South Georgia, whether it's from California, whether it's from Iraq or what have you, God put us there on purpose. God has some purpose in why we grew up where we grew up. And the purpose why some of us grew up in different places, whether it's in wealth or poverty or what have you, God did that. Why? That's the question. Why would God have me living in this place or that place? Where it says he did this so that they might seek God. That's why he put us where he put us. He did it so we might seek the Lord. He said, and perhaps that they might reach out and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. And then he goes on and says, for in him we live and move and have our being, as even some of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. And so that's why I can be in Clinton, Maryland, having all that I have both my parents involved. Grew up with both my parents, still alive today, still married, still in love today. And I can be laying on the porch looking in the stars, feeling like I have all that I need, but there's something in my life that is not connecting. I'm missing something. That was supposed to say, you know, I have all that I have, but God, I still need you. And then for someone to come up in a community that may be violent, in all of the horrors and so forth, it's to cause us to say, Lord, this is terrible. Lord, I need your help. I need protection. I need your wisdom. God, save me from this. all of our circumstances and places where we're from is to cause us to seek the Lord. And so that keeps me there because it lets me know, or it encourages me to give this inspired message about God to my neighbors. Bro, I see I've seen you stabbed up, and we seeing you sitting there bleeding and crying out. Like, it's a miracle you alive here, you walking these streets. Did you know that a God who loves you placed you here so that you'll reach out to him, that you'll call him, man, that he'll touch your heart, touch your life, touch your circumstance in such a way that you'll be a blessing to other people. Now, the young man, the gentleman who the Lord used to give me to follow the Lord, man, I mean, who would ever thought? And because of his life, man, the Lord has allowed me to do things that he has not been able to. Man, the Lord allowed me to serve in Kenya, Africa, in Ecuador, in Belo Horizonte, Brazil, just being all over these places to be able to have a family and kids. And he's a direct cause of that, and many other youth in the community and others. And so that says to me that though you have grown up in an environment that has been very, very difficult, and we totally get it, that God wants to use your life. And last thing, and I'm gonna quit. You just got me started.
Go ahead.
Lastly, bruh, Jesus, the same one I talked about who left heaven and came down to earth, bruh, like he get us, man. Like what it say, man? Nothing good can come out of Nazareth. Man, Jesus from the hood, man. That's what they were. The disciple was like, man, we found the Messiah. We found the one where we grew up when we was little, waiting on the one who's going to come and save us. And he was like, man, he over here in Nazareth. They was like, what? Nazareth? Bro, ain't nothing good come out of Nazareth. That would be equivalent to, man, somebody good. Man, nobody good coming out of West Montgomery.
Right.
Nobody coming out of Washington Park. Nobody coming out in Chi-Town or whatever neighborhood you want to name in the whole country. That people would say, man,
ain't nothing good
ain't nothing good coming out of there. This is where Jesus came out of. And not only that, but Jesus understands and sympathizes with all of our weaknesses because Jesus, as a man, was tempted just like us.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? And so if you have a God who can sympathize, that let us know that God ain't too far away to help. So,
amen.
My bad, bro. I got a little carried away.
You're doing good. You're doing good. Now, I'll just add to that. First of all, you mentioned your wife, but shout out to both of our wives.
That's right.
Because, they quiet and, people, some people may look at them and be like, y'all so quiet and so gentle and so, man, them some brave women.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are.
And when that situation happened, when G-Code got killed in our neighborhood, my wife was saying, man, the Lord ain't called us to lead. She was saying that. And all I needed was a little crack to be like, oh, yeah, I'm out. I'm already out. My heart, my mind already out. We ain't been here but a month.
A whole month.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
And she like, man, the Lord ain't tell us to leave. So I'm like, shoot.
Bro, that's
what I'm saying? I gotta get myself together.
Hey, that's like that. You familiar with them Rocky movies? And when Rocky's all low and down, and then Adrian say something, I'm with you no matter what, no matter what. And all of a sudden he ready to fight. He's like, oh, it's a wrap.
Oh my God.
But
yeah, for real. Like without them, man, we couldn't. We would have been gone.
That's right.
We would have never came.
Well, that's right.
We would have never came without them. So
that's facts.
They're definitely a source of strength and encouragement, and they right there in the trenches with us.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? My wife be in Gibbs Village. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? And yours do too, and all over the place,
that's
up
right.
and down the street.
That's right. That's right.
Another scripture that keep me, man, and this when the Dope Boys moved in when I was on Beecher Street and things just got really crazy. Man, I found myself some days just laid out prostrate on the living room floor, not knowing what to do. And the Lord led me to this verse. In Matthew 10, 28, it says, and do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny, and not one of them fall to the ground apart from your Father? But even the hairs on your head are numbered. Fear not, therefore, you are more valuable than many sparrows. So everyone who acknowledges me before men, I will also acknowledge before my Father who is in heaven. Man, that strikes me. Like, fear and the Christian are not supposed to be synonyms.
That's fact.
And
that's
and
facts.
let me
That's
say,
right.
being afraid is real.
Yeah.
And that's why I was laid out on the floor. I wasn't laid out on the floor because I was courageous.
Yeah.
I was laid out on the floor because I was terrified.
Yeah.
However, I have to get at the God too.
That's right.
And I have to believe that the hairs on my head are numbered.
That's right.
And that my last day, that story has already been written. And I can't add to it or take away from it. Another just a theological thought, not so much a scripture, but, the sovereignty of God. Man, I always chuckle or smirk. Guys will send me a book like, let's read a book on the sovereignty of God, or what does it mean to be reformed, or, stuff like that. And I'm like, I know if we believe in the sovereignty of God by how we live. Like, am I trying to manufacture, my protection? Or do I really believe that I can move into a place like a West Montgomery, or even some of the bigger places, Chicago, LA, whatever it might be? I can move into that context as a Christian, believing wholeheartedly that God has determined when I'm gonna stay and when I'm gonna go. Wow. You know what I mean? Like that. That's good. That really, that thought of God being in control really holds me and keeps me. And so, I would challenge anybody, man, like, is God in control or not? And I remember leading up the 2 years we were leading up to even moving to the neighborhood, I remember just being observant for clips of people dying in random places. You see people die at Six Flags, Disney World, some kid on a resort at some lake, you know what I mean? Lake Martin, people falling. Yeah, the most unlikely places. So those remind me, man, it don't matter where you at. When it's your time, you out of here. And so why not live life on purpose, on mission, not paralyzed, by fear. And that's what we're trying to do every day. And we're imperfect. We're human. I hope people hear us when we say, like, no, we be scared. And yet the Lord meet us in that place. That's right. Like Timothy, Paul told Timothy, God hadn't given us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. And so, man, we just trying to live out basic Christianity. Right. This ain't hero ball. We ain't out here, claiming to be on the all-star team. That's right. Claiming to be, some super soldier. That's right. We're common, everyday Christians who believe with all our heart that what the scriptures say are true. That's right. And we're just trying to live that out the best way we can. That's right. So that's right. That's good. All right, man. As we got a little bit more time here, but I wanted to say those are the scriptures that kind of help us. But backing up a little bit, like, how is it with kids and spouse and dealing with some of the hardships? Like, what's some of your thoughts on that? If you want me to go first, I can. But
well, shout out to our kids as well.
Amen.
Our kids are with us. I have 6, and I think you have 6.
I do.
Yeah. And so, and they're older now. My oldest is 22 and my youngest is 6. And so when those things go down, thankfully, some of those situations, like my kids, they stay upstairs. So sometimes they're not able to hear it as much as we do downstairs. But the times that they do hear it, we have conversations with them about it. Kind of how do you feel about it? And for the most part, I do remember the kid. I remember there was a time, maybe the second time, where they were like, "Dad, why are we here?" You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to do different. We can serve West Montgomery by living somewhere else, which is true.
It is true.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't, and we're not saying everybody to be able to serve West Montgomery or wherever city that you're trying to serve, that you have to live there. I believe the Lord just put those burdens and desires on our hearts.
I would say pray about it now.
Absolutely.
Ask God.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I ain't discrediting it. Yeah. Definitely ask the Lord.
Yeah, the Lord ain't called me that. How you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's not mandatory.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
not mandatory. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's good way to clarify that. So we talk about it. You know what I'm saying, and just kind of process where their heart is and where their minds are on those situations, and but the Lord does a work in their hearts as well. If our children would have been like, you know what, this I hear what you're saying, Dad. I hear about the Lord is trying to work in your heart to reach this place, but man, we need to leave. If that would have continued and kept going, who knows? We might have had to, for the sake of making sure our kids were okay, we might would have had to.
Right.
But the Lord had moved on my older kids about it, and they came to a place where they believed that the Lord had us there for a season, for a time, and that it wasn't time to leave later on. Yeah. And so I think that's normal. I think that's human. Just like you described when you was on the floor and all of that, you was terrified.
Right.
You know, and rightfully so.
Right.
And so, but yeah, that's how we try to walk with our kids through that. And so,
yeah, so I have 5 biological, one young man, you know, we get to be the guardian of. His mom passed away from COVID. He graduates in May. He's been with us since he was 15. I mean, you know, our first daughter passed away, stillborn. But, you know, in a lot of the early years, those first 10 years on Beecher Street, I think our oldest got up to about 12. So I'm grateful, too, that a lot of the gunshots and things, like, they were asleep or it just kind of missed them. But there are times when they're scared. And we do have to talk through that and try to help them see the whole picture. And one of the beautiful things that I hope, and I know we both hope and we both can relate to, is our kids are well-rounded. Even though they homeschooled and have been homeschooled for seasons or whatever, not all the way through, but for seasons or whatever, man, they can talk to a homeless person. They can talk to a rich person. You know, they can talk to some of the guys in that video. You know, church kids, community kids, adults, everything in between. Like, they're well-rounded human beings, and they know what living on mission look like, you know, up close and being sacrificial, you know, and how we go about that. So I'm grateful for that. So I just think open dialogue, continued communication, prayer, getaways. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get away, we break, we have fun. You know, we don't just try to be all work and no family. You know, we try to prioritize our families. That stuff helps, you know, when they don't feel neglected.
Your daddy days that you have.
Daddy days, you know, whatever it may be. You know, I just got back from a retreat for one of my girls. We took both our girls on a retreat last year. That's so we try to do those things, let them be involved in their spaces and what they passionate about, and don't force them to have to do it our way, you know, in a preacher's kid home, and you got to do this and you got to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even though we train them, you know, in the ways we feel like God want us to, but we would do that whether we were preachers or not. Absolutely. You know, like, this is the Christian way. You know what I mean?
That's
and
right.
It's a beautiful thing having guys in the neighborhood in our house. You know what I'm saying? And that was on both locations where we live, but I've had dudes sit around my dinner table and say, for the first time out loud, I want to get married, and I want my family to eat dinner together. You know what I mean? Because that's foreign to them. And then you know, a lot of the kids, it's foreign to even be in a house with 2 parents in the first place. They be like, wait, that's your mom and that's your real dad? and y'all all live together. Like, the kids be trying to process like what they're seeing. But that's why it's so important for us to be there with families, you know, because a big part of the problem that we're facing is fatherlessness and broken homes and not being able to see God's design in sex and marriage and family. And that's hurting us. You know, it's not the only thing that's hurting us, but it's one of the major things that's hurting us. So the family is a part of it. You know what I'm saying? The whole package is a part of it. And it's a blessing. But with the time we have left, you know, about 10 minutes left, let's talk about some solutions. You know, and I know a lot of people watch this, or they watch that video, or they watch my comments online, and they're like, man, I want to be involved. I just don't know what to do. First of all, for Montgomery specifically, I know of a lot of organizations that are trying to do good work in communities impacted by poverty, fatherlessness, gun violence, things of that nature. So I think it would be cool just to reference some of them. You know, if I forget you off this list, don't take it personal. I don't have it written down. Drop your organization in the chat if you feel neglected. Facts, But I think of the MAP Center, you know, now that Pastor Austin runs in the Mercy House, you know, that he leads. I feel like they do good work. I feel like
Ken Austin, that's Coach.
Yeah, Coach Austin.
Coach Austin
helped us through many hardships, funerals and everything.
Absolutely.
But he's been at it a long time, and they need help. You know, they need resources, they need volunteers. I think Valiant Cross making a huge dent, you know, training young men. In the ways of God and educating them. That's right. And creating a different culture, you know, at a younger age, you know, behind the behavior that they have. I think of Step Foundation of Cedric Fluker. You know, he's been doing violence prevention in public schools for Lord knows how long. Like
over 20-some years.
Yeah, we had a kid in our camp last year that was about 10 years old. Well, he been around since his mama was a kid. That's right. You know, so he's just been at it a long time.
Him and his wife, Sam.
Yeah, his wife is very influential in our reading program.
That's right.
At the middle school. But
that's right.
So I think of him. I think of King's Canvas. You know, we've known Kevin a long time. And Kevin King, King's Canvas. Right there in West Montgomery. That's right. Trying to connect the dots between arts and some of the things that, you know, impact our community.
One I think about is Hope Inspired Ministries.
Yeah, Hope Inspired Ministries, helping people with job training. Exactly. You know, they doing a good job. I think of the, you know, Flatline church, that's right. Church and movement and coalition. You know what I mean? They got a lot of different arms, but Dwayne, Rembert, DeAndre. Man, those guys are doing a fabulous job, you know, leading the charge with music, which is directly related to combating a lot of the hip-hop influence that's over the culture, as well as being the hands and feet of Christ on the north side of town, being in schools. That's right. We've learned a lot from Dwayne when he was at our church about engaging local schools. That's right, absolutely. And, you know, his influence is the genesis of our involvement at South Lawn and Carver and things of that nature. So I think of them. That's right. I think of Charles. That's my dog. That's he was in the video.
That's right. He was dropping some hot bars. Yeah. I didn't know he could rap. I was like, what is old Charles dropping bars?
Yeah. And he's impacting a lot of youth, man. So in Montgomery, I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of people doing good work.
A lot of people, man,
that can't be forgotten. That need our help. That somebody want to volunteer and donate. You got plenty of places. And then I think about us. You know, we have been at Strong Tower Church for 13 years. God has made a way for us to not have a traditional church building, but to actually raise the funds to renovate a historic community center.
William Kidd Franklin. With Jay May's help. That's right.
And Jay Mays has his own nonprofit too, doing good work and good volunteer work. So sorry, Jay, I can't remember the whole name, so I ain't gonna mess it up. But he's doing a lot of fabulous work, and he partners with us on our board, you know, for our foundation. But renovated that whole facility, and now we're in the process of trying to make that a community center, and what that's fully functioning, that meets the needs of the youth, that meets the needs of seniors, that specifically targets the young men in that video, through basketball outreach and other things. And we've had success up and down, various degrees, but we need resources and people too, to be able to pull that off. So man, if you're desiring to plug in, man, look up one of those organizations. Figure out which one aligns with your passions, and plug into that, because no one organization is going to be able to do what needs to be done. And it needs to be a call to all churches.
Exactly.
Regardless of where you're located.
That's right.
To figure out ways, to be involved. Yeah, and I like how you pointed out the different organizations and people who are doing work, because the Lord has given us different works that we do at Strong Tower Church. Like we have the summer camp that's coming up for the young people. Yeah, we're doing a big summer camp, trying to get kids. Go ahead.
Things like that. We're thinking of opening the gym to try to start playing basketball with the young men. There's a lot of different things that.
Well, we've done that.
We've done that for many years, exactly.
But the last murders,
that's kind of slowed that down a lot.
And they weren't at our facility, but they impacted the young men that were coming in.
Absolutely.
But now they're starting to call again. Yeah. They're starting to come around again. Exactly. They want to be back in the gym. There was a season, I think, a morning where they didn't even want to be in the gym.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, and we use that. To build relationships with them, so that we can say, man, I saw you in the video, let's go to lunch. You know what I mean? And that kind of thing. And so we've been able to do that. But man, we need volunteers for that. We need more men involved with that. True. Right? We need more people behind the scenes with that. We need resources to make sure that it's set up the right way, so that everybody can be safe. You know what I mean? And so go ahead. What else you?
Oh yeah, and the point I was bringing up about you bringing these things up is because, or these other organizations, is because it says we can't do it all ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right? You know what I'm saying? And so, but there are so many people out here that can. And say, for instance, you were to come to Strong Tower, you need, like, we have relationships with people all over the city.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're doing a lot of different things, whether it's connected to getting in schools, whether it's connected to getting a GED or go to college or an internship, or it's just people everywhere in the city that, and for me, like, I mean, you've been in Tuskegee. When did you get to Tuskegee? What, like 2000. So that's 25 years of being in Alabama, in the South. Man, I've been in Montgomery since '93. You know, when I came to school to play football back then. That's a lot of years. That's a lot of relationships, a lot of connections, a lot of people. So that, like, if people really want to get help or really want to do different or want to be a change or want to trailblaze, and maybe you grew up as you know, without your dad being involved, and now you have a son or a daughter. Like, man, there are people we can point you to and help you to be a well-rounded dad, or you got men in the church that trying to raise their children in God's ways, and it's just, I just like that. That was my point of bringing that up. And so
we've also done $200,000 of free dental work.
That's right.
Through the Strong Foundation.
The health fair. That's right.
We got the reading program now, which is something we haven't even publicized.
That's right.
But we're literally at one of the middle schools 4 days a week, trying to combat the reading epidemic that's really going on in the city. Where
that's right.
I think citywide public schools, magnet schools not counted, bro, we're over 50% of kids that read below grade level. And now with the new governor, not the new governor, but the governor's new mandate for being able to pass that reading exam in the third grade, that's going to impact a lot of kids. So we're there through the foundation, plugging people into that. And so we have a lot of things going on there, a lot of ways to get involved. But the question I think people got to ask is, you know, what are they going to do? And what can you do? And don't try to solve the whole puzzle and You don't even need to understand everything to get started. You know, roll your sleeves up, get to work, plug in with people that are already doing it. You don't have to do it. Go at it alone, and serve the Lord in this day. God has called us for such a time as this. That's you know, tomorrow is too late. You know, we need to move now. And I think the urgency, people don't see the urgency until you at a funeral. And you seeing a family weep. Man, this is urgent. Yeah. And we need people to be moving right now. So, man, thank you so much for this conversation. You know, we didn't pre-plan it.
Yeah, not at all.
You know, we kind of let it roll. I think I wrote down like 5 little questions here, you know, before we got started. But, you know, we've been having this conversation for so long.
Yeah, absolutely.
We didn't need a lot of prep for it. So, but thank you for what you do. You inspire me. And I'll end with this, man. Another reason why I'm still here, because you here. Like, I don't feel like I'm alone in these trenches. You know what I mean? And if I did feel alone, I'll be out of here. Matter of fact, I don't know if you remember, like, when we were finalizing things, I was like, man, I ain't coming.
That's right.
Unless Zoe.
You sure did say that.
I ain't coming unless y'all let him work at the church, man. I'm not doing it. I'm not setting myself up for failure. You know what I mean? When I look in the Bible, them jokers was going 2 by 2. You know, I ain't Superman. Y'all ain't about to run me up in here, get my head buzzed by myself. Not gonna happen. So, but no, appreciate you, and also want to say to you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And I don't know, man, we're gonna have to do some more of these episodes.
I think so.
We got a lot to talk about.
It's a whole lot, man.
Thank y'all for tuning in, and we look forward to putting this up. And having you tune in and check in back with us. And hope this has been a helpful conversation. Again, it's not able to address everything, but we hope we at least pointed you in the right direction. Y'all be blessed.